I think the best things that have happened to me in my life is that I've been able to submit myself to the leadership of people way better than me. I've brought some ideas from, inception stage to becoming maybe 30, 40 million pound valuation. He said he didn't have money to invest. I said, but you drove to my house in a car. If you believe that this idea is going to work, go sell your car. Nigeria was the first place where your ringtone became a music that you liked and people made money from that. Are we serving the people the way we expect them to serve it?
Welcome to Success Hangout. My name is Sean David Onomasi. This is the podcast where clarity meets creativity through the lens of leadership. This podcast is really focused on unpacking the ideas, the stories, and the insights that shape better living, better leadership, and greater success. Now, today I have with me a great friend of mine. I've known this guest for well over a decade or 2 decades going on now. And one of the things that fascinates me about him is his ability to lead himself, to lead people, and lead projects that have really transformed landscape, not just in the UK, but outside the UK as well. Now, if this is your first time watching this podcast, just to give you a bit of a background, I'm a serial entrepreneur and I talk to I have a lot of people in my network who are highly successful at what they do. They've been able to take an idea and turn it into £1 million, £1 billion businesses. And one of the things that has been a burden in my heart most recently is to bring these stories to light. Now, bringing these stories to light, what makes it different from other podcasts is that most podcasts will boast of experts, bring in just experts. And now these experts are usually far ahead of their game, that they're out of touch with reality. So I'm queuing this up just to say that the guest I have today is a peer to you and myself. So we're all the same here. This is hands down, no sort of, BS type of podcast where we really want to talk about the stories, what makes that business success and what makes the person successful in the business as well. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome my friend, Bankole. Bankole, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. You're looking good as always.
Oh, thank you. I'm sure I'm aging, but not as fast as...
A little bit of gray hair.
Yeah. I look in the mirror and I say to myself, the gray is there now. It wasn't there 10 years ago, but probably we get wiser with time too. So Absolutely. Well, now, I don't want to do the full introduction of what you do. You sit as chairman on fintechs. Yeah.
You are a director in over 7 companies in the UK alone, right? You sit on different boards. So I don't want to do that introduction because I wouldn't do it justice. Okay. Just introduce yourself. Who's Bankole Eniola?
Depending on the audience, considering the fact that your audience is mainly entrepreneurs and future entrepreneurs. So my name is Bankole Eniola. I haven't been an entrepreneur myself, but I've invested in probably about 10 different businesses over the last decade and a half. I've brought some ideas from, inception stage to becoming maybe 30, 40 million pound valuation. And I'm the kind of person who sees a gap in the market. And the next thing I do is call a few people together and say, you know what, there's a gap in this part of the market. Is that something you want to push? I think my greatest strength has always been being able to understand the capacity of the people who are traveling with me, who are making the journey with me. And when I think I invest more in people than their ideas, because I know that even if that idea fails, out of that failure, we can build something new because their attitude is right, their work ethic is right, their ability to envision things that cannot be seen is right. So yeah, I can say confidently now that maybe of all the things I've been in my life, the ability to crystallize ideas will be my greatest strength, and the ability to just make the unseen a reality. Yeah, that would be my great.
I like how you help to define entrepreneurship. You took it back to the basics, because entrepreneurship is not about how much money you're making, or even if you have a company and you're a director. Entrepreneurship actually at the basic is taking an idea and then turning it into a business. Right? So I like the fact that you go back to the basics.
So if that's the case, then I am an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
Because every day I see opportunities and I'll say, oh yeah, we can do this, blah, blah, blah. But if that's the definition, because my own definition of entrepreneur is probably a bit more complex than that. I see entrepreneurs as the real hustlers, right? Every day of their life, they're trying to, and I don't do that because, again, maybe my strategy has always been people, right? And the fact that I've also worked for some of the biggest investment banks in the UK puts me at a vantage position where I am not necessarily, I know the problem, and I find the people with the brain cells who can who can find a solution to it, and I also bring the money people into the space so that everybody can come together, and then we can go Series A, Series B, Series C, whatever the series is, to then get the idea to mainstream. So okay, maybe for once I can call myself an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. I also like the fact that you talk about people, investing in the people, not just the idea. What shaped that thinking for you? Because it's not one of the common approach to investment. Most people tend to look at the idea, the validity of that idea, how scalable is that idea, what is that idea, and they sort of play second fiddle with the people element, because this is the idea that we need to work on now. So you're quite unique in this space, that you're not just thinking about the idea, you're also thinking about the people. So what shaped that thinking for you?
So at the core of my being, at the very, very core of my being, if you take everything apart, I am actually a local village chief in a village in Nigeria. So the first thing you need to understand is that I'm a Yoruba man to the core. Grew up with my grandmother, speak a lot of proverbs. So I understand the world from that collectivist point of view, that it takes a village to raise a child, and that kind of worldview. That's that Ubuntu that I am because we are, right? That my identity is derived from the people that I have around me. The Yorubas will say, in your lasho, those kind of philosophies. So at the very basis, that's who I am. Now, I am not against scalability. I am not against the validity of the idea. Those are things I learned in school, whether it's business school or I learned in my practice as an investor. Yeah, it's necessary. But the people is always key, because you see, so number one, you will not find someone that does not work hard around me. I can remember investing in a franchise. This was probably 20 years ago. We bought Subway. And I can remember telling the guy that was going to do that business with me, he said he didn't have money to invest. I said, but you drove to my house in a car. I said, if you believe that this idea is going to work, go sell your car. That's the way by which you can show me that you are 100% committed to the idea. So that's the way I've always been. I look at the people around me and say, if I'm going to give you money, if I'm going to do business with you, let me see your skin in the game. And if somebody is hardworking, somebody is diligent, somebody has the ability to translate ideas into reality, and the only thing that is missing is money or connection or the right platform, it becomes a lot easier. You can give that person the platform. You can walk your socks off to ensure that you put that person on the stage, and then all of you become a success. So at the core of it, I'm just a village chief.
I like that. Village chief, because I had a question down about your early experiences that shaped this thinking. So,
Okay.
I mean, you've given us one already, being a village chief.
Yeah.
I'm taking that you went to school, like you said. Okay. So are there any other experiences that sort of shaped your philosophy around business?
So, still going on the idea of the village chief, and I'll go to business later. You also have to understand that all of us, we're a collective of all our experiences. So no man is better than their experience or their knowledge. I'm also the last child of my family. My mother will say, I have made less mistakes in my life because I had 4 other guys to learn from. And what does that teach you? It teaches you that if you can watch other people, you can learn from both their mistake and their successes. So in my own life, I have literally aggregated the things that made my brother successful and ran with it. So I am who I am today because of those guys. Right?
So what are those things?
Oh, the fact that my elder brother used to get into trouble a lot, and I just knew the things that my father would not accept. So I didn't have to do it. So I went through life saying, oh, my father never spanked me. But the truth about it is that I never did what my brother did. So I didn't get in trouble. I also understood straight away coming out of the blocks that education was something that was important to my parents. So I had to score good grades. Then I had a mother who was a serial entrepreneur like you. My mother did all kinds of business. So I learned hard work from her. And then my father would tell you 17 reasons why something will not work. So all the consultancy I've done in my life is because I grew up with my dad. I just knew how to pick holes in any argument and say, so those are the things that shaped me. So I can't stand here like those Americans and say, oh, I'm self-made. No, I'm not.
What I'm hearing from you, especially with that last example about how dad will give you 17 different reasons, is that you grew up in a very, or with a father that was quite analytical.
Very
Picked
analytical.
up that analytical skills, and then that translated into your consultancy.
Yes.
That's quite interesting. Now, if I was someone that didn't grow up in that environment, I've not had the privilege of, or I'm an only child, or I don't have the brothers, or I don't come in from the same background as you. What are those transferable knowledge that you can say, okay, you might not be as privileged to have had a father who was analytical.
Okay.
Right? You might have a father who is, just not that person at all, not thinking in that direction. But here are the things that you can do that are tested, not just because, I've experienced it, but I've also seen in colleagues and friends and entrepreneurs that I've invested in.
Okay. So I started picking, my mother would make jokes about me that I pick my cousins, I pick who I call uncle, I pick family friends. So, growing up in Nigeria, you have a lot of people around you. You meet some of them in church, you meet some of them family functions. But I have always picked the people who are important to me, the people who can be mentors. And for instance, I said my father is my mentor when it comes to analyzing stuff. I didn't say my father is my money mentor, right? The same way my mother taught me hard work, but my mother did not teach me vision. I chose, and I'm saying this from probably when I was 16. I have always gone to the people who I feel, oh, this person mirrors the kind of future I want. I submit myself to them and I start watching them. I think the best things that have happened to me in my life is that I've been able to watch people. I've been able to submit myself to the leadership of people who I know are way better than me. So I don't necessarily have to be the wisest person in the room. I don't even want to be. But I want to be sure that if I want to do something, I have a mentor that I can go to, and I've been fortunate that all my mentors since I was 16 till today, they're still in my life, shaping my life in one area or the other. And even now, when I want to do big deals, I have mentors that I call and I say, oh, this deal is X amount of money. Okay, how should I play this? And they will be able to tell me, that's a good investment, but XYZ. And they show me straight away my blind spot or, So I think guidance has always been a part of my life, surrounding myself with and if you go back to my philosophy, I'm still a village chief because you can't think of a village chief without the committee of elders, without the people surrounding him to make decisions. So it's still the same. But yeah, my life has been significantly shaped by deliberately seeking out people who are smarter than me, who can guide me along the way.
I like it. You are speaking my language, and you're speaking my language not just because of the valuable advice that you're giving, but I like the analogy that you're giving, right? That analogy is very pertinent to not just reshaping entrepreneurship, but also tailoring it, right, to the African narrative, which is going to bring me to my next question around African enterprise.
Okay.
Now, if you're on social media, there's a whole lot of podcasts, a whole lot of conversations talking about Africa rising, the debate whether Africa has risen or whether it's rising. Now, I'm of the personal opinion that, the African rising narrative was one of the greatest successful PR initiative on earth. Because it got a whole lot of people excited and thought to themselves, Africa is rising, and some people are still in that place. But when the rubber hits the road, people understand that there's a whole lot of transformation that needs to take place before Africa really takes that place it needs to take. So in African enterprise and transformation and things like that, for those who have invested time, they've invested energy, they've gotten some VC money already, they're boots on ground in Africa, they're doing stuff. What are those areas, blind sides, that people tend to overlook when they talk about enterprise in Africa?
So let me start with the things we've gotten right, and then we can talk about the future. The biggest challenge across the continent 10 years ago was payment. Whether it is local payment, whether it is regional payment, I'm doing business in Ghana and I want to pay in Naira and not in cities. Or I'm doing business in Malawi and I don't want to have to convert to dollars to be able to do business in Malawi. So for the last decade, that has been our challenge. So again, I am a payments guy. I'm an investor. That's the way I see the world. There might be other green areas or other challenging areas on the continent, but this is what I know. So payment was a difficult space. And then over the last 10 years, now we have the Paystacks of this world, the Flutterwaves of this world. Payment has improved significantly. InterSwitch, those kind of players, they've made payment better. The next step is intra-Africa payments. Now, the Afrexim Bank is doing a good work in that intra-Africa trading platform, right? In another 5 years, that will be solid and we'll be able to transact across the continent. And that will significantly increase transactions all over the continent, because now it means you can make a shoe in Lagos or a dress in Lagos, because that's another fantastic sector, the fashion industry in Nigeria. And you can make those clothes in Lagos and somebody can buy it in Malawi and pay you in Malawian currency or South African rands, and the money drops in your account in Nigeria in Naira. So yeah, that's good. That's really good. So payment, we're making progress. But the future is fragmentation. And put this down: fragmentation of credit, fragmentation of infrastructure. So think about it this way. Think about the real estate sector in Nigeria. Very few people can get a mortgage. And the reason why they can't get a mortgage is because we have not cracked credit history. So there is a whole credit sector that can transform the way we do business in Nigeria and on the continent, that we've not been able to actualize because it's fragmented. I don't know you in that sense because if there was a system where I can put your name and that system can show me your credit worthiness, what you've bought, and a system can actually score what you can actually take as a loan, and I can introduce your pay slip or some kind of your financial history from your bank into it. Fragmentation. The next big business in Nigeria, because as Nigeria goes, so Africa, the next big business is somebody integrating all the fragmented parts of you as an entity.
So let's stay on that for a second.
Yeah.
So fragmentation, that's fantastic. It's much easier to be able to achieve that when you have a data-rich, society.
Yeah.
How do you crack that? Because, Nigeria, which I would use as, sort of like a case study, and I would apply it to most of the African continent, you can get away with changing your name, right? And according to the data that the government has about you, which I would assume that you will have to pull in order to be able to, check your credit score, right? You can change your name without the information. You don't need an affidavit to do that. There's so many fragments. There are people, right, who don't even know when they were born. They just make it up.
Yeah.
There are people who don't have birth certificates. They're 70 years old. They've never seen it for once, right? So in a data poor environment, how do you achieve that level of fragmentation? Because the idea is great, and I think it is important. But, if the infrastructure is not there, how do you build?
So the Chinese will tell you that the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second best time is today. If we are going to solve the data problem on the continent or in Nigeria, we have to start from somewhere. So my theory is that we are going to solve that problem with the carrot and stick approach.
Okay.
The people who can make their data available in a system will be rewarded. When people then realize that all that Bankole did to be able to get a loan of X million of naira from GTB or from this was because he has all his data correct in this particular trusted data source, then that will change behavior. Everybody wants to be consistent because now everybody wants to have access to that.
Now, is the key words there trusted source?
Yes, there must be. Okay. There must be. And that's the real innovation of this idea about bringing together all the fragmented part. There must be, because there is also fragmentation of trust. And the way to solve the problem of fragmentation of trust is to have a single source, or what do you call a golden source of data? The golden source of data that is trusted and is the single source of truth. And once we have that, Nigeria is a 250 million people. So we are not going to have a database that solves the problem for 250 million people. But let's start with 30 million people in the first year. Let's grow it to 50 million in the second year. By the time you grow it into 50 million, people will build sub-businesses on that will go into villages like Ikiri, like Ikiru, and build data models that those people can use. The same way we have banking the unbanked. They will create data models on the back of that to go to Ikiru and say, you can then have a loan, you can then do this.
Can I play devil's advocate?
You are going to say, what if they take the money and go and marry a second wife?
No. I'm actually not going to go to that part. That is already going into the, the distrust in business and stuff. Let's actually challenge the 200 to 220 million people.
Okay.
Right? Because we can use that as a base. And I hear that a lot. We're 200 million people population. Now, that number was 180 million just a few years ago.
Yes.
So we've said that Nigeria has produced 20 million people in less than 5 years. Is that what we're saying? Because sometimes the question is, even the baseline data that we use for our assumption and our ideas could be wrong.
Fair point.
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine a number of years ago, and this was at a time where we were still debating that Nigeria was 180 million people. And then he said, actually, he thinks 180 million is an exaggeration, because when you look at the number of people who have SIM cards, the diesel number, the number of people who buy diesel, the number of people who voted, that aggregated number was sitting just over 120 million, not 180 million. And this was less than 10 years ago. Now we've jumped to 220 million. What's the source of truth at the present moment with our assumptions? Because we know that there's a problem with data, but we always have to start with a baseline.
So again, two ways. It's either the government will do that for us and clear that off and give us a proper census, but I don't think politics will allow us to do census, a reasonable census in Nigeria, because the day you do a reasonable census, Nigeria might no longer exist. So,
all right, we're not going to go
So you might not be able to touch that. But extrapolating data like the people who use diesel, the people who use this, number of voters is never a true, because even in America, probably about 30% of Americans that are of voting age will vote. So that might not be credible. But we can use consumption to verify that. But along the line, the real thing is that we have to get to a point whereby we crystallize our data and say, this is our starting point, whether through a census, whether through extrapolated data. But nevertheless, even if we say we are not 220 million, let's even say we are just 100 million. That is still a 100 million strong market. So let's start with 20% of that and have data for 20 million people. And once you have data for 20 million people, somebody would fashion out a way of finding the data for the unbanked, for the people in the villages, build a model on top of your model to solve their problem of accessing credit. And then they will also find, because remember, our problem is never really innovation. Our problem is that if we are not given the room to be able to run, I'll round up by saying this. Think about the telecoms industry. Nigeria was the first place in the world where we tried out per second billing. Nigerians will think it through if you give them the framework, right? Nigeria was the first place where your ringtone became a music that you liked and people made money from that. So the whole idea is give us a structure and then we'll run with that and also.
Awesome. Now, we've only got a couple of more minutes on today's show, and I have two questions. The first, or the last question, second to the last question, is around values, right? So leadership is incomplete without values. If you meet the average African, whether of diasporan extract or lives on the continent, and you ask what the challenge or what the issue is, and you've already alluded to it, people will say it's leadership. And in order to solve the leadership crisis, you can't solve it in one go. But a good place to start is values. And talking about values, what are those three values that you would encourage emerging leaders, thought leaders presently, and people who are in leadership to continue to model? And if they don't have it, that they can start modeling now. What are those top three values?
So at the core of my theory of leadership is humanity. If your leadership is not humane, if it's not filled with empathy, if it's not relatable to the average average John, average Joe, average Shegun on the street, what exactly is your leadership? So any emerging leader, I want you to show empathy. I want you to be relatable. I want you to go into leadership because you want to solve problems for the vast majority of Africans or Nigerians who don't have the opportunities that you have. I can remember, and I still do it, right? We'll be driving through Lagos and I'll tell my wife, what do you see in that guy who is trying to sell us something in traffic? And my wife will say, oh, I can see a man trying to make money for his family. And I will say, no, I see a Nigerian who has been failed by the system, because that guy could sit in his house and be a consultant to global conglomerates right from his house. All he needs is a tool. So empathy is critical. That's number one. Number two thing that we need is vision. That's why I like Tony Elumelu. We need visionary leaders. We need people who are not just solving problems for themselves or trying to make themselves rich. I'm looking for emerging leaders who are trying to solve problems for 1 billion Africans, whether you are from Cape Coast or you are from Maroc or you are from Mogadishu. I want emerging leaders to be able to create ideas that can touch people all over that continent. Vision is so, so critical. So as we begin to think about vision in agriculture, how do we make Africa the breadbasket of the world? How do we solve the problem of hunger? How do we solve the problem of energy crisis? How do we integrate the unbanked, the uneducated? All those fragmented parts of the continent, we need visionary leaders. I'm not just saying talk about it. I'm saying you are writing about it. It doesn't even have to be popular at first, but keep churning it out. Someday society will catch up with that. And the final thing that I think every emerging leader should find is a place of sacrifice. I also think that one of the things that have been lost in our conversations about leadership on the African continent in the last 5 decades is servant leadership. A leadership that is not looking to be worshipped. Oh, come on. I live in Lagos and I see how people are driven by this I better pass my neighbor kind of mindset. They want to be worshipped. You come out of your car, people are saying rank a dede, people want to talk to you, they are kneeling by your chair. It could be culture, it could be anything. But there is a place that even if that is our culture, are we serving Shaney the same way Shaney is serving us?
I like that.
Are we serving the people the way we expect them to serve us? So as leaders, as an emerging leader, if you can do those three for the continent, I believe that we will be writing the next phase of Africa's leadership story.
Amazing. Thanks, Bankole. So you've heard that on here, right? As an emerging leader, as a thought leader, you want to put people at the center of what you're doing. You want to have a vision, and you want to have that servant leadership sacrifice element to it. So you've heard it. You want to keep that at the back of your mind. Last question, and this is just one word answer. Davido or Burna Boy?
Wizkid.
Well, you heard it. Bankole likes the Birdman. Wizkid is Bankole's favorite. Well, thank you so much for joining this episode of Success Hangout. The next episode will bring another emerging thought leader and an entrepreneur that will be talking about these leadership and all those hot topics that you like to hear. If there's anything I want you to take away from today's episode, it is this, that ideas are very, very important, but we must invest in people. Our guest today, Bankole, has reinforced the importance of people. People will make the difference. If you're an investor, I want to encourage you, don't just focus on validating the idea if it's scalable. Look at the person, because like Bankole said, it made it very clear, if that idea fails, as long as the person is the right person, you can always kick off another idea with that person. Bankole Eniola, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure. I look forward to having you back.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure coming around.
Thank you.
Thank you.